What's going on, all you wild film and TV enthusiasts out there? It's your two favorite critics back here kicking off a brand new year in 2023. I am Logan Myers, my good mate over there.
And I'm Henry Hill. And what are we talking about today? What are we going to go over?
We're going to be talking about all of our favorite movie and TV shows of 2022. What a hell of a year for entertainment. Coming off the pandemic, the backlog of movies and TV shows being released. It felt like every week something new was coming out, but hell of a year for a lot of great movies and also a lot of great television shows. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight, our top fives, best and worst in film and TV of 2022. So let's kick it off, shall we? So with the best list for movies of 2022, my number 5 is a movie that came out right around my birthday last year. One of my favorite superheroes with a Halloween vibe to it. And of course, I'm talking about Matt Reeves, The Batman, number 5 for me for best movie of 2022.
There you go. Number 5 for you was The Batman. It made my best of list, but surprisingly, when I went through it, it did not make my top 5. Go figure. But for me, my number 5 is Robert Eggers' The Northman.
Ooh.
Came out earlier on in the year. What an awesome film. I saw it in theaters. I'm so glad I did. It was, it had that A24 vibe and, really authentic to the Viking lore. And, it has that Robert Eggers, visual style that he set up. And he finally got a blockbuster to direct, and he just made it awesome, epic. Great cast, Ethan Hawke in there, obviously Alexander Skarsgård, and just a great cast and a great story, a great revenge story of a young Viking going out and to take revenge. But I just love the look and feel of it. Great score, that awesome berserker scene in the beginning where they go attack, and just some amazing work. And my favorite Robert Eggers film so far. And it just goes to show you he's got a promising career ahead of him.
Absolutely. He's one of my favorite up and coming directors, put out 3 solid movies. This being one of his better ones. And that was on my honorable mention list. But movie I picked up for Christmas on 4K. So I'm looking forward to rewatching that. Also saw it in the theater. Really fantastic movie. Very brutal. A lot of great action scenes, really great performances. A movie you guys definitely should check out if you haven't seen it. Speaking of A24, next up on my list here for best films, number 4 for me is going to be X. That's right. X. T West, Uncle T. Put out 2 really bangers in 2022 in terms of X and Pearl. I liked X a little more than Pearl. I love Pearl, but I liked X just a little more. I thought it was really well done. Great horror movie, a great nod to the 70s grindhouse films. Great gator in it that scared the shit out of me, and just all around just a fun movie. Really surprised by that awesome soundtrack. So that's number 4 for me, X.
It's like we're thinking with the same brain here. We're merged up here on number 4. The only difference is I picked Pearl. I liked Pearl a little more for Mia Goth's wild performance, a throwback to like the days of old with the, person going slowly insane over the film, bringing Mia Goth to the spotlight and really showing what she can do. And this, film chilled me to the bone. Her performance really eerie and just the visuals that we got and her snapping at the end. Everything about it was awesome. But yes, X2 can go right along with this. Not very different in quality. I just preferred Pearl a little more just for that. And I can't wait to see Maxine, as I know that you can't wait for that either.
Hell yeah, in the 80s, our favorite era for sure. So I'm super stoked for that. An old trilogy. Maybe they'll release a trilogy on a box set for us, and we would love that.
Oh, I hope so, please.
So with that being said, we're going down to my number 3 on best movies of 2022. My favorite Marvel movie of 2022, Doctor Strange, The Multiverse of Madness. Sam Raimi at the helm and getting some Spider-Man vibes in the brand new film with Doctor Strange and going into the multiverse, and it got really super dark and it turned into like Evil Dead and, a zombie Doctor Strange. A lot of cool characters showing up in this, all the villains, and had Uncle Bruce Campbell in it. Just a fun movie. And of course, Wanda. You have Wanda in this film as well. She was Scarlet Witch, the big bad villain, and another great performance by Elizabeth Olsen.
Didn't make my best list, top 5, but definitely an honorable mention for me. For me, number 3, it was a movie that actually didn't come out in theaters. It came to Hulu of all places. I'm talking about the Predator prequel, Prey. What a great film. What a great way to, bring back the Predator, go back in time to where it all began, to where he first came to Earth, the Predator, and where, the Native Americans had to go up against this, advanced alien creature with, all the technology of the future. And they had to, use their minds and their primitive weapons to go up against it. And just an awesome performance by Amber Midthunder and an awesome setting. And I love the way Dan Trachtenberg, shot this film. It really brought back, the memories I had of the first one, being in the jungle too, and just being all about survival. Had that gritty feel to it. Awesome film and a movie that you can stream on Hulu. So that for me was my number 3, Prey.
That was my number 2 of the year. So that was a good call on your part because I loved it as much, a little more than you did, actually. And just going in the wild back in the day, Native Americans taking on the alien creature like you were talking about, just the action sequences, the effects all looked great. The bear and all the animals you'd see in the wild back then was pretty cool how they did that. Some brutal kill scenes. So phenomenal movie streaming on Hulu. Number 2 for me, Ray.
For me, my number 2, a movie that I just watched this past month, the movie that we reviewed not too long ago, a movie that stars Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. They're back together again after In Bruges, a film they did with Martin McDonagh years ago, and they're reunited for another film by Martin McDonagh. I'm talking about The Banshees of Inisherin. And just a low-key movie, not a huge plot, just about this relationship between these two guys and how it slowly devolves and gets crazy. To the point of where that somebody's chopping off their fingers, and it's, kind of turns into like a revenge tale too. I also had a great performance from Barry Keoghan, a great young actor that really shows, a different side to what I've seen him in so far, and something that a performance that was really memorable for me. And a movie that I really enjoyed. I liked the whole thing. I love the whole cinematography was beautiful. The Irish, a mountainside. And just how they kept saying "feck you, you feckin." It has that catchphrase that I was using for weeks after I saw it. So just a fun movie, different than anything that you've seen, and strong performances, and unlike any other movie I saw this year, and it made my list of number 2.
Oh shit! So we're coming down to the number 1, our favorite film of the year, and I'm pretty sure you had the same one as me as we talked about it over the summer and kicking off the summer blockbuster season. Of course, we're talking about one of the greatest sequels ever made of all time, for sure, in terms of action, in terms of 8K, the way that they shot the film, real actors flying planes. Of course, we're talking about Top Gun Maverick. Came out this summer. Number 1 movie of the year. We both picked it up on 4K. Just astounding what they did with this film. Tom Cruise is a nut job, as we all know, but he really did it for the fans. And 30 something odd years later, making a sequel that's still in the same realm as the original, but took it to a modern take with a newer audience. It still worked. It still had the 80s vibes to it, but it was still very unique and refreshing and modern at the same time.
Yeah, for me too. Had to be number 1. The film that really kicked off movies again in the movie theaters. And it's all, because Tom Cruise wanted this held. He didn't want it to go to any streamers. He said, let's put this on the shelf for these 2 years, because this was supposed to come back, supposed to come out to theaters a few years ago, and then COVID hit and everything started getting pushed back. Tom Cruise wanted to wait until it was a good time to release this so everybody would have a chance to watch this in theaters. And what a cinematic experience it was. It really upped the game as far as sequels. It gave you everything that you wanted. It gave you the heart of Top Gun, gave you the nostalgia, gave you the scenes that were, harken back to the original, the homoerotic beach scene, the awesome visuals. And not only that, but yeah, with them going up into the airplanes this time and actually filming them, and all the actors going through the training that actually, the pilots actually do, was just phenomenal and gave it that authenticity. And then you had Tom Cruise, not being selfish and, realizing he's getting older and kind of putting himself to the side of this one, where he's like the teacher, but he puts his trust in these young group of actors. And, Miles Teller, Glenn Powell, the whole cast really did a phenomenal job. And, I love watching this film. I saw it twice in theaters and definitely picked it up on 4K. Maverick really excelled, and just a great sequel and a great, great film for 2022, the best one, one of the best of the year, and my number 1 for sure.
One of the best theater experiences as well. So people out there that missed that, the local cinema, I feel bad for you, because it really elevated the experience. It's top notch all across the board. I'm glad they kind of pushed back the release date so you can see it in theater, and it really paid off, and it exceeded my expectations, and definitely one of the better sequels out there. So that's our top 5 list for best films of 2022. A few honorable mentions I wanted to throw in here that I enjoyed this year that didn't make my top 5. Elvis, starring Austin Butler, young Elvis. Presley saw that after I got back from Vegas. We reviewed it, had a good time with it. Really good film, and Tom Hanks in that was really creepy as well. And then the movie behind me, Jordan Peele's Nope.
Nope.
Was another really fantastic, great sci-fi horror movie that I really enjoyed, and I thought it had a cool take on it about aliens and what they did with that movie. It was really, really well done.
For sure. A couple honorable mentions for me. You had the Batman on your list. That was, close behind, just outside of the top 5 for me. Awesome movie, Matt Reeves going into that universe. I'm more excited by what they do with the sequel. There's a lot of potential there, with where they ended up at the end of that first film. I can't wait to see more of that. Other movies I like to mention, Jackass Forever, hilarious. Saw that one at home, but can imagine the theatrical experience for that must have been pretty awesome seeing it with other people. The Black Phone, awesome horror movie from Scott Derrickson this year, with Ethan Hawke playing the villain. The Grabber, awesome horror movie. Then like you mentioned, Elvis and Nope for sure. Bullet Train was a lot of fun, exceeded my expectations. And then we had Barbarian, that other horror movie that flew under the radar. Nice low budget horror film with Justin Long and Uncle Bill. Awesome film. Then we had Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Christmas, Bloody Christmas, Fresh, that movie with Uncle Sebastian Stan back on Hulu. That fun horror movie, Fresh. And then my last film that I'll mention, Glass Onion. Oh, sorry, second to last film, Glass Onion, Knives Out story, and Everything Everywhere All at Once. Was a crazy, wild movie. It was a little out there for me, but definitely deserves praise for the Michelle Yeoh's performance and the brothers Daniel directing that. There's a lot of potential that, and it's a movie that I want to watch again and see what I missed the first time. I didn't love it the first time, but I definitely appreciated that multiverse that they did for that movie. It was real wild, a lot of cool fight scenes, and then Uncle Data showing up in that too was cool to see. So there are a lot of honorable mentions.
That's right, a lot of great movies. And with that being said, there's also a lot of terrible movies in 2022. A lot on my list in the horror genre, and so we're going to dive into our worst movies of 2022, and I'm going to kick it off with number 5 for me. That's not horror, but the rest are. Number 5 for me, worst Marvel movie of the year, Thor: Love and Thunder. Hated it. I didn't like anything about it. Very hollow movie, a movie that just felt like it was rushed. A lot of editing, could have been a lot of studio interference. I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I was really excited for it and just walked out of the theater like unfulfilled and like, I'm never going to watch that again. And that's how I feel. And one of the worst movies of the year.
Yeah, that was definitely on my list. That was number 3 on my worst list. Number 5 for me was Firestarter, the remake that came onto Peacock earlier on in the year and just didn't have anything to it, just really flat. And, I was expecting a lot from that and had a great hope for it. Had a good soundtrack. That's about the only thing that I had going for him. But it just fell flat for me and, very unmemorable and something that I'd never watch again.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw it in theaters and there's 2 people in the theater with me and Molly. So that's usually says something about the movie. John Carpenter's score, the best part about it. Hour and a half long. Everything they made the original great in the 80s, they took out of and just did it with visuals and didn't work. Zac Efron and the girl were okay. It was just the script and direction of the movie didn't work. And it's my number 4 as well on my list.
All right. So now we're talking a lot about horror movies, and there are a lot on my list. The next film on the list, Halloween Ends, one of the worst of the year for sure. Just what they did with it. They tried something way out of the normal, going from Halloween Kills, which, brought the momentum of the trilogy really high. It's our favorite of the 3 movies. And the third one, they just tried something way outside the box, put it in the future, had Michael hiding in the sewer, and then put all the focus on this young teenage character, curly-headed kid, all about him accidentally, killing a kid he was babysitting in the beginning, and then just sort of squandered a kind of cool setup at the beginning and kind of squandered it, and showed a relationship between him and the Strode daughter, And then, the final 10 minutes, they finally gave you some Michael Myers action, but that was about it. He wasn't even the focus of the movie, Michael Myers. I mean, it's a Halloween film. And we got more focus on this kid, and it just didn't work. Just a bad movie.
Yeah, an awful movie. Going more with horror movies. Another awful worst movie of the year for me, number 3, Scream, that came out I think in January, and so laughable how bad it was. Walking out of the theater, I'm like, what a waste of money. Like, that's how I felt about it. It was so predictable, so silly. The guys who did Ready or Not did the new Scream movie, brought back some legacy characters. You could tell everybody was there for a paycheck, and it showed in the final product. Very disappointing movie, and a movie I'll never watch again. Number 3, worst of 2022.
Ouch. Number 3 for me was a movie that you mentioned, Thor: Love and Thunder. More like Boar: Love and Thunder. Terrible movie. Took my brother. He was visiting. We figured we were going to go watch a big, fun, loud Marvel movie. It just wasn't fun. Had, cheesy jokes in it. Bad, performances. Christian Bale was the villain. He was the most promising of the whole thing, and they just like squandered his, he shouldn't have been in the film. It was just like a totally different film happening outside of what he was trying to bring, this dark, tortured, villain into this universe, and everything else is like light and fluffy. And Russell Crowe, he's overweight playing, Zeus. And, it just didn't work for me. And then he had the goats laughing all the time. It's Taika Waititi went a little too wild on this one, unfortunately, and it didn't work. It was a box office bomb, and one of my least favorite Marvel movies, especially after Thor Ragnarok. That one was a lot of fun. So I had, high expectations, and it just did not work.
Yeah, I don't think Uncle Taika is going to be directing any more Marvel movies. I'm pretty sure of that. Because, it just was a bomb. It's just ridiculous and unbelievable. And it took everything that was great about Ragnarok and they kind of threw it away. And then the Love and Thunder. So that being said, number 2 on my list for worst of the year, Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Netflix. Totally forgettable. I had to go back to our old movie reviews from the earlier last year. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that movie that was just really bad. Trying to go in the same realm of what they did with Halloween. You have a character from the first movie. She's older now, and we got Leatherface back in this little town and teenagers, and they're just absolutely stupid. The best parts of the movie are some of the kill scenes and some of the unintentional comedy they had in the movie.
That's all that the movie had for sure. Some cool kill scenes, but just everything else recycled from other movies, and annoying cast members, people that I didn't really sympathize with, doing stupid stuff, of course, like in every other Texas Chainsaw film, but brought nothing new, and was a disappointment. And for sure, that was on my list. I'd put that right along at number 2 with another horror film. It was, they had some stinkers for sure. They had some good horror films this year, but some stinkers. And a horror film that we reviewed, they/them, trying to make that whole concept, people going through, having gender identity, being an issue, and trying to go to this conversion place with Kevin Bacon at the being the villain of the movie, and just not memorable at all. I can't really remember too much of it already, and it's only been a couple months since I watched it. Fell flat, didn't like the performances, just didn't have a lot going for it, and was a stinker, unfortunately.
You summed it up with that exactly. And my number 1 worst movie of the year, as you can probably guess, is Halloween Ends. I fucking hated this movie so much. I complained about it. Ever since it was released, big slap in the face to the legacy, to all the fans been watching this forever. John Carpenter, Jamie Lee Curtis, just a big, utter waste of time, dumpster fire, and stupid story. And there's this movie I'll never watch again. I'll refuse to pay for it too. I love all the Halloween movies. Want to collect all the steelbooks. I'll refuse to buy this movie. I hated it. It's just awful. And yeah, the worst movie of the year for me, and never watch it again. Halloween Ends.
Halloween deserves to end after that ending. Oof,
yes.
What a bad one.
I don't want
But I'd rather watch that film again. Surprisingly, I'd never say this if it wasn't for my number 1, a stinker. And it's directed by somebody that's done another Halloween film or two. Rob Zombie. I'm talking about The Munsters.
Oh, man.
Just an unbearable movie for me. Oh, my gosh. I was watching this. Everything, nothing about it I liked. Maybe some of the set design and stuff like that was, something that we talked about where we could, give it some credit. Other than that, just awful movie. The jokes fell flat. Dan Roebuck, I guess he was another bright spot, but just the script, what it was trying to do, the humor. It captured nothing of the original series. Rob Zombie casting his wife here, it just didn't work in the role. She did that stupid thing the whole time. I just wasn't vibing with the movie at all. A bad movie. And my number one worst movie of the year, The Munsters.
Oh, that was up there for definitely one of the worst. A movie I'll never rewatch again. It was terrible, like straight to Walmart bin. That's how bad it was. The slap in the face for the whole legacy of the Munsters has been around since the 60s, man. Just a movie should have never been made. And Zombie, just come up with some original content, make good movies again, for the love of God. Some other really bad movies that came out in 22 I wanted to mention here real quick. Hocus Pocus 2. Big slap to my childhood, slap in the face, because this movie was just pretty bad too. Didn't really like much about it besides the Sanderson sisters returning. None of the original cast is in it. Just kind of a, money grab, cash grab for a younger generation to something to watch on Disney Plus, and I was really underwhelmed by that. So that's another movie I didn't care for. And then Men, Alex Garland's Men, A24 film that really excited for. Really weird, trippy ass movie. Really messed up ending and not what I expected, and definitely not a good movie. So we'll switch gears here and we'll go over to television. And, yeah, television.
There's a lot of good ones.
Oh man, I think I watch more TV than movies. Just so much
Definitely
coming out, all these streaming services and platforms. There's something coming out each week, and it's hard to keep up with everything. But we're going to talk about our favorite TV shows of 2022. And number 5 for me is the final season of Better Call Saul. I ended up binging this. I was about 3 seasons behind and ended up binging those seasons before the final season was released on AMC. And man, I had a great time with it. Loved how they, finished everything off, how they kind of tied it all in with Breaking Bad, what happens to Saul's character and everybody else in the show, the whole black and white sequence at prison, and it just really well done. Vince Gilligan is the mastermind behind this universe, and so thankful to have 11 seasons in this universe.
Absolutely. There's so many choices for TV. It's hard for me to rank them all. Here's my ranking, but there's going to be a lot of honorable mentions, so keep that in mind. And, I just ranked this basically yesterday. It could change. I'm not very hard on a number 5 through number 1, but all these TV shows that we mentioned are, shows that you guys are going to want to check out. So on my list of the best TV shows of 2022 at number 5, I have Tulsa King. I have, Taylor Sheridan bringing Sylvester Stallone over to TV, this big action star that's, only done movies for all this time, and then brought him into this role of an old gangster coming out of prison. And also bringing over Terrence Winter, the writer of Sopranos, to, make sure the script's good and everything's cohesive and just a fun show. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's having a lot of fun, and it's given Sly Stallone, in his 70s here, this role that he can really chew up scenery on. And he does a really great job. And you have a great supporting cast. And you have Dominic Lombardozzi as sort of his nemesis, a boss from his old way of life back in New York. And really, shows a fish out of water story with this gangster getting out of prison after 25 years, going into the modern world, having to survive. But not only that, go to Tulsa, Oklahoma, out in the boonies and the sticks. And, he has to, get a crew together and sort of start building his empire up after getting out of prison. So had a great time with Tulsa King. Been watching this from week to week. It's already been renewed for season 2. So you guys should all check it out on Paramount Plus.
That's definitely another great, show on the Paramount Plus network. It's on my honorable mentions, but really fantastic show. We're going to be reviewing the first season when it's over here soon. So stay tuned for that. Number 4 on the list, I have Lord of the Rings that hits Amazon Prime Video, a show that we reviewed. I absolutely love this world they built, the most expensive show they've ever made. It really shows the CGI, the effects of the show look beautiful, feels like otherworldly and everything you'd want in a fantasy show, but still in the same realm of the Peter Jackson films that he did. So really blown away, impressed with what they did with the brand new Lord of the Rings series on Amazon, and why it's my number 4.
It was a terrific show, terrific series. They put all the money in the world into it. It looked beautiful, had a really cool story where I didn't know where it was going to go until the end. And they really left off at a really awesome point with some characters being revealed and really moving the story forward of that. They did a great job honoring the, legacy of the original trilogy, but did something different, modern, brought in, a more diverse cast, and it worked really well. I can't wait for the next season, probably in 2024. It's going to take a while to put those episodes together, but a really great first season. An honorable mention for me. And my number 4, something that premiered on HBO Max this year, John Cena as the Peacemaker from James Gunn. It was just a really crazy out there DC show from the mind of James Gunn, with his kind of humor, his writing, with the Peacemaker being this, character that I didn't know anything about, to be honest, with bringing him in, giving him his own show, letting him work with these other actors every week. And I just had a blast with the show. It's so fun. Him and Robert Patrick, who played his dad, a lot of awesome, funny moments. The great soundtrack that we've come to know from James Gunn, a lot of old classic rock, and a great title performance, a title sequence that, there's a whole dance for and everything. Really awesome series. I can't wait for season 2 to come out. It's been a while, it feels like, and just a really great first season of The Peacemaker.
That's right. I absolutely love that too. I went in with low expectations, and really one of the best intros ever, and really great series. John Cena is definitely growing on me. Now, I wasn't a fan of wrestling, but I like him as an actor. He's pretty funny. So great for that part, and a great series to check it out on HBO Max. Number 3 for me is one of my favorite shows, one of the OGs of Netflix. I'm talking about Stranger Things, season 4, part 2, when shit hits the fan, literally, and introducing all these ghouls and everything you can think of, and the Upside Down, and all the characters that all have grown up. The season started off a little rough, took a few episodes to find its footing, but it really, at the end, the payoff is fantastic, and really setting up the final season. Balls to the wall action, really great, some great kill scenes, a lot of great character development, just across the board. I don't need to explain anymore, and it's my number 3 of 2022 in terms of television.
It was just outside of my top 5. A great season. The whole Eddie on the roof with Metallica playing, awesome, memorable scene. And, the kids are all grown up now, and it's leading into the final season to really up the stakes. And it's really going to be an exciting final season. Set the stage for that. All these kids getting older, Hopper being in Russia and finally being able to come home at the end, be reunited with old Winona Ryder. Everybody's together, but, the stakes are as high as they're ever going to be going into the last season. Had a great time with Stranger Things Volume 4. My number 3 was the final season, part 2 of Ozark on Netflix, obviously a show that we love. And it was the end of the Birds as we know it, their story, everything, how it came together, all the lies, deception, Ruth murdering, and everything coming to a head. And we found out what happened to the Bird family moving forward. Not everybody survived, but they definitely did the show justice with a great ending here and a great final season, and a show that I'm going to miss, man. They had, incredible seasons of television. Jason Bateman, all the kudos in the world, coming on to star and direct this, awesome crime drama for Netflix. And a show that really, set the bar high. It had a lot to live up to, being in the same vein as Breaking Bad and, other shows like that. It really belongs up towards the top. And I loved everybody, Laura Linney, Jason Bateman, and the list goes on. So many supporting actresses, and Julie Garner as old Ruthie. I'm going to miss her. One of the best performances on television of all time, for sure.
For sure. This is definitely one of the best shows of all time, up there, Breaking Bad. Really fantastic crime drama, and why it's my number 2. Just loving and really anxious to see how it all ended, being involved with these characters in the world of crime, money laundering, Mexican cartel for 5 seasons, and all coming down to the final, how it's all going to end for all Marty and Wendy, and young Ruthie Langmore as well, and how her arc changes, how she changes as a character throughout the seasons, what happens to her at the very end. A really great supporting cast, a lot on the line. The stakes are high, and a really beautiful way how they go out, and why it's my number 2 of 2022, and definitely one of the best shows on Netflix ever.
Going on to my number 2, a show that you've already had on your list, Better Call Saul, the final season. It wrapped up everything. Just a really phenomenal, achievement in television from Vince Gilligan. Not only having Breaking Bad, right up there in the top 3 best shows of all time easily, and then creating a spinoff with a side, one of the minor characters, really. I mean, he made a big impact on the show, but he wasn't like a huge character in the Breaking Bad universe. But giving him his own show and making it just as exciting and invested in his story and finding out, how he was going to, survive after, Breaking Bad and the events of that. But going back first to his beginning and find out how he became the shady lawyer, finding out that he was a really good guy to start with. And then he eventually breaks bad himself, but not before redeeming himself in the end. Some awesome performances here. Great actors. Rhea Seehorn, great performance there as Kim Wexler. We had, Mike Ehrmantraut coming back over the show, Michael Banks, everybody, just a fantastic final season. And they nailed the final episode. Sometimes shows don't end up being as great as they could be because they have a bad finale. That wasn't the case with Better Call Saul. It was one of the best finales of all time for sure. And that's why it took the number 2 spot on my list of best of 2022.
Just talking about that, I want to go back in that world. I want to go back to New Mexico and the grimy, crime-stricken world that they, Gilligan created, and just so phenomenal thinking about it. Gives me goosebumps. It's definitely a show I want to rewatch over and over and over again. That good. So that being said, going down to the number 1 best TV show of 2022 for me, a show that we've been talking about since it was released. Our love of food, our love of Lip Gallagher, our love of Chicago, the backdrop here, these wild boys. We're talking about the show that premiered on Hulu, The Bear, Herd Chef, number 1 for
Chef.
me. Herd Chef, the intensity and everything that goes into running a restaurant in the kitchen, how stressful it is, how sweaty you are, constantly working, not making a lot of money. It really captures all of that. The one continuous shot they had in the episodes, it just really in your face and really high strung, and they really knocked it out of the park with the show. Jeremy Allen White, one of my favorite young actors, coming from Shameless over back to Chicago for The Bear, taking over his brother's business, his restaurant, to come in from New York, being a really high profile chef, coming to Chicago back home to run this restaurant. They're making Italian beefs and all the goofy characters that work at this restaurant, and they really captured that beautifully. A show I want to rewatch, and a show I'm excited to see where they go with it in the next season. So that is definitely why it's my number 1 for best TV show of 2022, The Bear.
Without a doubt. Yeah. My number 1 too. A great first season of television, and a brilliant performance by Jeremy Allen White. His speech in that last episode, amazing. One of the best, just amazing. The emotion that he puts through in those words and how far they carry, and how far it goes to, from his arc building throughout the whole season up until that moment, and his realizations and that, and what his whole family means to him in this business now. And then, going on and moving forward from that. And we get a second season of it. Amazing feat, great television, one of the best, pilots episodes of all time, and one of the best first seasons of all time for a show premiering. Definitely worth everybody's attention. It's a show that I want to rewatch and will rewatch before the second season for sure. But just terrific. And Jeremy Allen White will for sure be nominated for performance, I have a feeling, and the show will get some awards this award season, and it deserves them all. It's a great show.
Yeah, definitely our favorite show of the year. We both agreed on that. The Bear. If you haven't seen it, check it out on Hulu. It's streaming right now. Season 2 should be coming out this year, sometime 2023. So those are our best TV shows of 2022. Some honorable mentions I'm going to toss out here that weren't on my list. All the Paramount Plus shows, you talked about one, but I'm talking about 1923, Yellowstone, Tulsa King, The Offer, Mayor of Kingstown, 1888, the one we just reviewed. The list goes on and on. Lots of great television on Paramount Plus, all really great dramas. I love my Westerns, and these are all really well done. Taylor Sheridan Universe is just fantastic. So those are some honorable mentions. Gangs of London, another show we reviewed. First season, we're going to be reviewing season 2 coming out soon. Interview with a Vampire was on AMC, another great show we reviewed recently. House of Dragon and Andor on Disney Plus. Some really good shows to check out.
All those you mentioned. I'd also mentioned Dahmer with Evan Peters.
Oh, yeah.
Really awesome performance from Evan Peters, and a great series on Netflix. House of the Dragon for sure. The Boys, the latest season over this past year, really solid, really fun, crazy, off the wall. Tokyo Vice, from
Yes.
HBO Max. We both really enjoyed that. We're getting a second season. They filmed it, so we're going to be getting that sometime this year. I look forward to seeing that. And let's see, anything else? The Offer you mentioned, and Interview with a Vampire for sure. Great first season. Awesome how it paid respect to Anne Rice's novels. I think we mentioned them all. Obi-Wan Kenobi, worth a mention too. Pretty solid show. Not my favorite this year, but definitely a good reintroduction to, Ewan McGregor and as Obi-Wan.
So that being said, we're going to talk about our least favorite television shows of 2022, the worst TV shows in our opinion. And there's a few on here on my list. Number 5 being The Midnight Club, Mike Flanagan's newest show on Netflix. Love the Christopher Pike books, but the overall adaptation of it just didn't work for me. Too slow. Didn't really catch its footing until about halfway through the season, and I just wasn't really into it as much as his other work. So hopefully in his future work on Amazon that will get better, but just didn't care for it. And my number 5 for worst of 2022.
Very good. I didn't even have 5 listed here. I'd have to go back and think about it. I got a couple though. I'm going to go with, also mention The Midnight Club. Just a disappointment, especially after Midnight Mass, The Haunting of Bly Manor, The Haunting of Hill House. Just a disappointment as far as that with Mike Flanagan. We've been a big fan of his, and this one just didn't have the same effect. Ultimately got canceled, so we're not going to get any more of it. That's okay. Mike Flanagan still is going to do some awesome work, and he's got another one, Fall of the House of Usher, coming this year, so that'll be interesting. I'm still in. It just was a disappointment.
Yeah, you can't win them all. It is what it is, but I'm sure he'll make some better or have some better projects in the future for sure. We got hope for that guy. We love him. One of our favorite directors in the horror genre for sure, and always crafting out some good content. The next one on my list, number 4, is American Horror Story, the newest one, New York. Couldn't get into it at all. Too over the top. Really silly writing overall, just kind of a blah season. I liked last season a lot, but the season just didn't work for me, and a big disappointment.
Another one I'd mentioned for my list of worst of the year, going back, thinking about all the Marvel shows, definitely the one that I was most disappointed with and thought should have been better. Had some interesting concepts, but just wasn't as into it as I was hoping, was Moon Knight. Oscar Isaac, double identity, had some cool parts to it, just didn't do what I had hoped it would. I hope we had a new Marvel hero to root for, and it didn't really do a lot with the show. Unfortunately, Ethan Hawke was in it as kind of like a cult leader, which was interesting, but out of all the Marvel shows, that one kind of fell flat for me, unfortunately. I don't know if they've confirmed a season 2 or if they're going to be any more, but at the end of season 1, they kind of set it up for more, but I don't think it did very well on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I can see why. Another Marvel show on Disney Plus that just didn't work for me is She-Hulk. Really enjoyed the first 2 episodes and the last 2 episodes, and the other 6 episodes I didn't like at all. The tone was all over the place, breaking the fourth wall, being a sitcom, trying to be funny. Is it an action? Didn't know what it was trying to accomplish, and there was no really end goal for the show. It was just kind of silly. More the introduction of this character and how she's going to show up in future Marvel movies. Tatiana Maslany, love her as an actress. She did the best she could. CGI just didn't work. It looked terrible. It got worse throughout the show. I'm not saying she's a great actress. It's not her fault. Just for really the direction of the show and a lot of the script and the visual effects did not work. And that was the 3rd worst of the year for me. And I'm sure I'll definitely not rewatch again. Another Disney Plus show that was a huge disappointment for me, being a fan of this since my childhood in the early 90s. The Santa Clauses with Tim Allen. What a huge dumpster fire that was. 6 episodes, couldn't even tell you what happened because it was so boring and nothing to it. And it was just a paycheck for Tim Allen. And it really shows, some of the legacy characters returning weren't even that good. Just small parts, and overall, didn't need the show, and really disappointed in that being one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time, the original, and just didn't really capture that magic again. And I guess they're going to have another season, so I guess we'll have to watch that and tear that one apart too.
Yeah, that one was definitely on my list. I only watched the first 2 episodes, and that was enough for me. Didn't have any magic to it. Felt like a paycheck grab, no heart in it. The effects, everything too glossy, and it's all right. It was fine to review around Christmas time, but it's not a show that I'm going to look forward to finishing or watching the second season, but I will for all you Cinephellas fans out there.
And a TV show that you already talked about, Moon Knight, another Disney Plus. So they're not having a good track record in 2022 in terms of shows. Number one for me was Moon Knight. You already talked about it. I don't like Oscar Isaac, but he was okay in it. Honestly, I think it was overall direction and the writing of it was really silly, and some of the effects didn't look good either, and just didn't really make me care for the character. And according to some of the Cinephellas boys, the comics are obviously a lot better and darker, but it was more of like a PG-13 kind of vibe to it. And the end result just wasn't a good, Marvel Disney Plus show, and probably the worst Disney Plus show I've seen thus far.
My least favorites for sure, like you mentioned earlier, the newest season of American Horror Story. It just felt like a concept that he had, and a kind of half fulfilled concept. He had something he wanted to show, but just poorly executed this season. Felt like the actors were, they didn't get any of the legacy actors. They got Zachary Quinto and a couple others, but a lot of them were sidelined this year. It just felt, it didn't click completely. The ultimate, villain of what was going on was kind of subpar in the end to where everything ended up. Just a bad season overall, not one of the strong ones. And, hopefully he can get, Sarah Paulson back, Evan Peters back in it, because the show definitely needs it, if it's going to survive much longer. It's, going on how many seasons now? What is it? 10, going on 10, 11 season. It keeps on going. And they're going to have to find some of that early magic to keep this going. If, this past season has anything to do with it. Just wasn't a fun watch for me, and one that I wasn't really paying attention to well by the time it ended. So definitely one that you can skip if you're wanting to watch the American Horror Story. Is definitely one of the worst seasons for sure.
So that was our list for best and worst TV and movies of 2022. But me and this guy over here and the rest of the Cinephellas are super excited for 2023. Lots of great movies and TV shows coming out this year. Already started in January, only a few days into the month. But it's going to be yet another very exciting year in the entertainment business. And we'll be here to be covering all of that and sharing our thoughts with all you guys. What's your favorite, TV shows, movies, and some of your least favorite movies and TV shows of 2022? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to click subscribe. Check out these wild breakdancers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and our website, Cinephellas.com, for the latest, greatest TV, movie news, and reviews.
Thank you guys so much for watching us. Yep, like Six Barbers here. Let you guys know everything that we really loved and hated this year, cinema and TV. Overall, an interesting year, coming out of the pandemic. It feels like we're getting back on track to where things should be. There's a lot of promising shows that had, interesting first seasons moving forward. We saw some, a lot of great shows this year, and a lot of good movies too. The blockbusters were fun. Hopefully 2023 will be just as good to us, movie and TV buffs and just overall media enthusiasts here at Cinephellas. So thank you guys for joining us. Until the next Cinephellas Best of, I'm Uncle Henry.
And I'm Uncle Logan Myers, signing out until the next video.
Cheers! And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, you wild rascal.